next speaker is a young entrepreneur and co-founder of WorldDesk, designed to exploit the benefits of cloud technology. Please welcome Jonathan Chesney.
I should first point out that Sarah and I didn't deliberately coordinate our outfits today. It's just one of life's coincidences. Being fourth speaker on the bill is a little bit like being the last person to get the office birthday card. A lot of the topics have already been taken, so there's some small overlap, but I'll try to move through them pretty quickly. Here's the video that Bro had referenced about the entrepreneurs based in America who all use technology, and they're creating the jobs of tomorrow. This is an abridged version of the video, but it's available on code.org if you want to check it out. And there they talk about that even in America, they can't fill their jobs.
I was 13 when I first got access to a computer.
My parents bought me a Macintosh in 1984 when I was 8 years old.
What it is, computers are everywhere. You want to work in agriculture? Do you want to work in entertainment? Do you want to work in manufacturing? It's just all over.
Just to think that you can start something in your college dorm room, and you can have a set of people who haven't built a big company before come together and build something that 1 billion people use as part of their daily lives is just crazy to think about, right? It's humbling and it's amazing.
The programmers of tomorrow are the wizards of the future. You're going to look like you have magic powers compared to everybody else.
I think it's amazing. I think it's the closest thing we have to a superpower.
Great coders are today's rock stars. That's it.
My name is Jonathan Chesney, and I am a more recent product of the Northern Ireland education system. Way back whenever I did my A-levels, I studied physics, maths, and technology, and after visiting my careers teacher, I ended up studying law. Now, there's 3 people to blame for that. There's myself, there's my careers teacher, and there's Ali McBeal. After completing my law degree, I really knew that this wasn't a career for me. There is a lot of lawyers, and nobody ever says, we need more lawyers. That's just not something that comes up. So my first job was for the Washington Ireland program, which is a program that takes students from Ireland and Northern Ireland to Washington, DC for leadership development and training. This gave me a good background in terms of I know what it's like to try and be an educator, someone that has to work with students and teach them things. In this first job, creativity and technology was key. And after leaving that, I decided to set up my own company, WorldDesk. At WorldDesk, we create solutions for businesses and education on how they can get the most of their IT infrastructure. I don't want to bore you too much on the detail on that there, but I just had to get it in because now I can go back to work and say I was actually working and not count this as a holiday day. So whenever I started to prepare for today's talk, I did what probably most of your students and pupils do. I went to Google and I asked the question, why do we go to school? Now, I had some answers of my own, but I thought, Google's always right. And the first thing they came back with was Yahoo answers, which is quite interesting because I thought Yahoo and Google really weren't meant to get along. But that was the top result. Luckily for me, someone had answered this question. Somebody who claimed to be called Scott Evil had asked the question, why do we go to school? The question seemed to gather a lot of attention. In fact, the top answer was from someone who claims to be an alien from beyond, and they offered 3 reasons. To learn, to get out of your parents' hair, and to get a job. Now, this alien from beyond seemed pretty happy with their answer because they triumphantly declared simples. Now, I'm not saying that this is a definitive answer to why we go to school or why we take part in an education system, but it brings up an interesting starting point for what we're going to look at. If we assume that people take part in schools and universities to learn and ultimately get a job, then the question we need to ask is what role do creativity and technology play in that area? And that's what I'm going to look at now. Bro mentioned TED, which stands for Technology, Entertainment and Design. It's a useful online resource, TED started out as a conference that took place once a year in America and has now grown to be something that takes place all around the world. In fact, I think there's a conference happening in Belfast pretty soon at Stormont. The theme of this conference is ideas worth sharing. By the end of last year, TED had accumulated over 1 billion views and boasted such speakers as Bono, Bill Clinton, and Stephen Hawking. But despite this list of accomplished speakers, the video that is most watched on the TED community is by Sir Ken Robinson, who Bro mentioned. Ken Robinson is an expert in creativity. In fact, he took the British government's 1998 committee to explore the role creativity can play in education and the economy. As part of this, he considers the topic of divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is the process used to generate ideas by exploring multiple solutions. So we're going to do a quick test of this now. We're going to use an example that Ken uses of how many uses can you think of for a paperclip. So very quickly, have a think about that. Here's what Ken has to say about that process.
Most people might come up with 10 or 15. People who are good at this might come up with 200. And they do that by saying, well, could the paperclip be 200 foot tall and be made out of foam rubber? You know, like, does it have to be a paperclip as we know it, Jim? You know. Now, they tested this, and they gave them to 1,500 people. This is in a book called Breakpoint and Beyond. And on the protocol of the test, if you scored above a certain level, you'd be considered to be a genius at divergent thinking. Okay? So my question to you is, what percentage of the people tested, of the 1,500, scored at genius level for divergent thinking? Now, you need to know one more thing about them. These were kindergarten children. So what do you think? What percentage at genius level? 80. 80? 80, okay. 98%. Now, the thing about this was it was a longitudinal study. So they retested the same children 5 years later, ages of 8 to 10. What do you think? 50? They retested them again 5 years later, ages 13 to 15. You can see a trend here, can't you? Now, this tells an interesting story, because you could have imagined it going the other way, couldn't you? You start off not being very good, but you get better as you get older. But this shows two things. One is we all have this capacity, and two, it mostly deteriorates.
What I didn't tell you was the talk that Sir Ken did for TED was entitled Schools Kill Creativity. Now, that's probably not a popular theme here, and I don't agree with what he's saying. But from the evidence, it does look like our capacity to be creative diminishes over time. I think today in Northern Ireland we have a very good education system. It's an education system we can be proud of, and we raised that bar to a high level. But the real challenge for us is how do we create creativity in schools? Every December, Time magazine features and profiles a person who they consider to be their person of the year. Past recipients include Mahatma Gandhi, JFK, and Adolf Hitler. They describe this person of, for better or worse, the person that has done the most to influence the events of time in that year. Now, I'm a subscriber of this magazine, so it's something I look forward to every year. And this is what landed on my doorstep in 2006. It was a copy of Time magazine. On the front cover, it had an image of a computer, and rather than a screen, it had a reflective mirror, and it declared, "You are the person of the year." Initially, I was quite flattered and considered adding it to my CV. But whenever I opened up and read what they meant by that, they meant that technology in the internet age was being a great equalizer. What they meant was that through technology, we could all be the creative agents that we see in the world. And that has turned out to be true. This was, as I said, sort of 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And today we see that bloggers have reshaped and defined a news cycle. People are using their laptops to record studio quality music. And we all probably have phones in our pockets that can record HD video. What used to be high hurdles to creative careers are no longer there. In fact, we can find these studios in our rooms. Now, this doesn't always lead to good results. Patricia Bieber uploaded her son's singing videos onto YouTube, and as a result, our world has changed forever. As they say, you can never put the genie back in the bottle. This is all very well and good. We have access to technology, but we can't all be pop stars. So what else is there for us? Is there really a role for creativity and technology in the workforce? And that's really the angle I come from. I work in a technology company, but we have a very small budget, we've got very small resources, and we're a startup. So that's a big challenge for us. What is the one differential we can have? Well, we all have to use our imaginations and use our creativity to really stand out in the market. I'm not saying we've succeeded in that yet, but we're still around 3 years after starting, and with a bit of luck and a bit of creativity, I think we'll keep going. There is a man who did combine creativity and technology to create jobs, and his name was rather apt. Let's look at the Apple retail experience. The reason why we pick Apple is because Apple for the last 3 years has largely been the highest valued company in the world. Now this fluctuates between 1 and 2 depending on the price of oil and whether there's a new iPhone coming out. But all in all, it's a good example of a company that is succeeding. Today, there are 363 stores worldwide, and each of them generate, on average, $49 million. That's quite a staggering figure, I think. You know, to imagine that there's a store just a mile away from here is probably turning around at least 40 to 50 million worth of computer hardware is pretty staggering. In just one quarter, 85 million people visit the Apple Store. And since the first store opened in Tyson's Corner in Virginia in the year 2000, over 1 billion people have been through their shops. What does this mean for jobs? Well, Apple has created 42,000 jobs worldwide. And in terms of how they compete in the market, Apple more than outsells by double the second highest retailer in America, which is Tiffany's, which is something I won't have to worry about for a while, hopefully. So how did Steve Jobs do this? And this is a slide we looked at earlier. Every keynote Steve Jobs gave, he always used to include at one point where his company lay, what his philosophy was. And he said that Apple set up their company at the intersection of technology and liberal arts. It wasn't just through great technology that Apple had become a success. It wasn't just through creativity or a smart advertising campaign or the look or aesthetics of their products. It was technology and creativity combined which built the world's most valuable company. So what does that mean for us? You know, none of us know what the future holds. The economies and jobs of today aren't the economies and jobs of tomorrow. Advancements in technology will move industries forward and outdate many practices. Let's take a very basic example of that. 20 years ago, you might have opened a record store. Now, okay, you'd have sold CDs, but it was still a record store. As we know from HMV, that's not really something that's a good business option for the future. 10 years ago, you might have opened up a website where you could download music. And that was very popular for a while. In fact, that's what kind of was blamed for the reason why HMV disappeared. But if you're an investor money today, you wouldn't be investing in a website that downloaded music, you'd be investing in a service that would stream music. And that shows that one industry, the music industry, how dramatically it is changed by technology, and what has kept people ahead, giving them a competitive advantage and taking advantage of that, is their creativity. It's their creativity of how they utilize technology. A few slides ago, I mentioned how technology is a great equalizer in terms of maybe we can be pop stars and maybe we can be movie stars. The other thing is, the digital divide is disappearing. So the economies, the emerging economies of China and of India, they're catching up with us. They're catching up with us in education and technology. How are we going to keep our competitive advantage? And again, this is something one of the earlier speakers mentioned. It is really going to be our creative application of those things. So I've mentioned the challenge we face, and I think this is a challenge we all share. People say about how everything is interconnected. And the challenge we share as pupils, we need to be open to new learning experience and bring our energy to the classroom. As educators, we need to maintain the already high standards in terms of education, but be open to creativity. If we're looking again at Ken Robinson, how the creativity is disappearing, how can we raise that standard in our classrooms? As technologists, we need to strive to provide good solutions in the technology people require. And as business leaders, we need to continue to build environments and create jobs that people want to aspire to work in. Thanks.